Hi, this is Mark from the Swamp School. I'm here to teach you about a certain kind of wetland called a marsh. So let's get started learning. This is what we'll be covering in this presentation. First, we'll talk about what a marsh is, and we'll have some terminology we'll need to cover. Then we'll discuss the functions and values of marshes in general and why they're good to have around. Then we'll discuss two types of marshes, non-tidal and tidal marshes. So, what is a marsh? A marsh is a land that is periodically saturated, flooded, or ponded with water, and a marsh has herbaceous vegetation and wet soil conditions. Marshes receive most of their water from surface water, or precipitation, but they also get water from the ground underneath the surface. Here's where we need to define some terms, so that's what's coming up next. Herbaceous vegetation is soft-stemmed vegetation as opposed to woody-stemmed vegetation. Some types of soft-stemmed vegetation found in marshes are cattails, sedges, and grasses. Brackish water is another definition we should know to understand marshes. Brackish water is somewhere between salt water, like you'd find in the ocean, and fresh water found in lakes, ponds, etc. We should also discuss the term microorganism. These are tiny organisms that can't be seen without a microscope. They live in the soil and consume and convert nutrients in the soil to the nutrients that plants can use to grow. Next, we want to talk about how important marshes are to the environment. First, marshes recharge groundwater supplies from the surface, and they also moderate stream flow by providing water to streams. This is really important, otherwise streams would either be too fast or too dry. This function of marshes is helpful during droughts because the water is moderated even during these times. Also, the soil found in marshes slows water down during flooding and severe storm events. The slow-moving water deposits sediments and pollutants in the soil where the marsh vegetation and microorganisms in the soil use these nutrients for growth. These sediments and pollutants are used up before they can get to the main water source, like our rivers, streams, and lakes. So marshes actually clean our waters naturally. Now we can talk about the first type of marsh, the non-tidal marshes. They are the most abundant type of marsh and are widely distributed in North America. They are mostly freshwater as opposed to salt or brackish water. They can be found along the boundaries of lakes, ponds, and rivers, or in poorly drained depressions in the land. The water level might be a few inches to a few feet, but on the other hand, they may dry out completely for a portion of the year. Non-tidal marshes have highly organic, mineral-rich soils. Because non-tidal marshes have high levels of nutrients, they are one of the most productive ecosystems in the world. The vegetation found in non-tidal marshes are cattails, reeds, bulrushes, and this vegetation provides a habitat for herons, otters, muskrats, and also waterfowl. There are several types of non-tidal wetlands. These are prairie potholes, playa lakes, vernal pools, and wet meadows. Let's move on to tidal marshes, which, as the name implies, are found along protected coastlines. On the east coast of the United States, they can be found from Maine to Florida and along the Gulf of Mexico. Because they are found along the coastline, the water found in tidal marshes can be saltwater, brackish water, or even fresh water. These differences are due to the tidal influence on the marsh. There are two zones of tidal marshes, the lower or intertidal marsh and the upper or high marsh. Saltwater is predominant in the lower marsh because it is exposed daily to the tides. These marshes are covered up at high tide by water and support a highly specialized type of life that is adapted for salt water. Upper or high marshes lie farther inland but are close enough to be affected by tides. These marshes are mostly fed by freshwater streams, and the water in them does not have a high salt content. These high marshes are common boundaries between forests and rivers. Tidal marshes help prevent erosion of the shoreline during severe storms. They also provide food for clams, crabs, and even baby fish. These are sometimes called nurseries because they shelter and provide habitat for these baby fish. These coastal marshes also provide nesting sites for some types of migrating birds and waterfowl. So, what have we learned about marshes? First, they are a valuable ecosystem for many types of vegetation and wildlife. They protect surrounding areas from floodwaters by absorbing and distributing excess water through the soil and vegetation, and slowly feed the water to our streams and rivers. Marshland also absorbs nutrients and pollutants being washed through it from farms, industry, and housing. The slow-moving water in a marsh allows for sediments to stick to the soil particles, and these excess nutrients and pollutants don't make it to the surrounding body of water. So marshes actually clean our water. Marshes are also a valuable habitat for many species of animals and plants. Without marshes, we would have more extinctions of wildlife and waterfowl. I'm sure you agree that we need to protect this valuable resource because it protects us. Have a great day.